Welcome to the Standard of Truth podcast. In this podcast, Dr. Garrett Dirkmott and Professor Richard Leduc explore the early history of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and the life and teachings of Prophet Joseph Smith. They examine the original historical sources and provide context for events of the past. They approach the history of the Church with faith, expertise, and humor.
Hi, welcome to our bonus podcast. We know that most of you don't listen to the bonus, but maybe, do some people listen?
We have about half the listenership to the bonus than the standard episodes.
So that shows our listeners are far more discriminating than other listeners, I think, right? Because they aren't just listening to whatever pops up in their feed.
No.
They're seeing it going, I don't want to listen to that.
Some garbage. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Huh. So how is it they're so discriminating on the content of our podcast, but not discriminating enough to not listen to our podcast?
That, sir, that's the enigma. We don't quite know.
We need to know more about our listeners, which brings us to the purpose of this brief bonus podcast. This is an announcement of sorts that we are sending out to our listeners to see whether or not people are interested in trying to find a way for us to spend a little more time together. I mean, not that you're looking to spend any more unless you happen to be in Prudhoe Bay, Alaska. But the reason why is, look, we've done several tours, and we hear from people all the time who will say things like, "Hey, I'd love to go on your tour, but I have triplets, and they're all under the age. Well, they're all going to be the same age.
But they're under the age.
Yeah, they're all under the age of 6 months. And even if we waited 2 years to go on your tour, we still wouldn't be able to go because triplets, or people will say, I'd love to go. We had a really nice person email the other day saying we wanted to go on the tour, but our van broke down. And we don't want people choosing to either go to the holy sacred sites of the Restoration or food. But the Bishop's Storehouse is there. Right?
It is. Garrett doesn't want them to choose that. So we've received some ideas of things that we might be able to do. And so,
yeah.
and I say all the time that the best part of the podcast is not the podcast. It's the listeners to the podcast. They are smart and funny and insightful and creative and great. And when you go on the tour and you're with similar like-minded people, you're having a lot of fun, you're learning a lot of information, and you are making some really good friends because you're kind of self-selecting, right? Oh, people that like this kind of podcast are a certain way, and they're the best.
Yeah, it's kind of like if you dressed up to stand in line to get in early to a Star Wars premiere. We're not nearly as entertaining, but you have a pretty good idea who the other people in line with you are.
It's true.
You think?
It's actually very similar. And so we had a friend of the show, Damien. He made a suggestion of why don't. And by the way, Brady's been asking us to do this for years.
Well, we tune Brady out, mainly because he's our spiritual better. And so because of that, he's always saying things like, hey, you guys should be more righteous. Hey, I think you guys should maybe, you should serve more. And so we just tune him out. And so we had to get it from another source.
So what we wanted to try to do, so the most popular thing on the tour last year
was what I hated most,
which is why I loved it the most, which was a live recording of an episode of the podcast. So which is more chaotic in person than it is listening. If that, I mispronounced my own name more than once. But so it was great. So Garrett does lots of firesides, no problem.
Yeah,
but
you're not sitting behind a microphone talking. Well, you are.
You literally are.
Well, you're standing.
Okay.
Give me a standing desk
right.
and we'll talk about it.
Anyway, I brought that up. I'm like, it's literally the same. It's not, but it sounds like it.
Well, yeah, but it's for posterity. Normally, I just have people surreptitiously recording my firesides in order to, claim things that I said weren't true or whatever. But so this is the idea, right? What we'd like to do is we'd like to host a little, should we call it a shindig? It's not really a party, but we would like to get together for anyone who's interested to come to a venue. Now, I apologize for our Canadian listeners. I apologize to the people in Australia. I apologize.
Well, they can all come.
Okay, well, let me just finish the apology by saying we're going to probably hold our little get-together in Utah. We were thinking Vernal, but
I did live in Roosevelt for a year, so there's that.
How old were you when you lived in Roosevelt?
I think I was 2, maybe 1. But I went to a Nate Bargatze stand-up comedy special when he came to Utah, and he made a joke about I'm a clean comic. I know my audience. That's why I keep coming back.
That's why I keep
Utah.
going to Utah. Yeah. Well, I mean, look, if this is wildly successful, then we'll try somewhere else. So the important part about this bonus episode is we are going to schedule in March, likely the same weekend as St. Patrick's Day, because we're Catholic. Because who doesn't like green beer? We're gonna find a venue, hopefully an incredibly inexpensive one, and depending on the interest, likely the back of my van. And we will host a live studio audience recording of the podcast. Now, anyone who actually went on the tour, they can testify how much I hated it. Even saying these words, I'm wondering, how is it that Richard just gets me to do things I don't want to do? He's very persuasive. It's what a PhD in business will get you. PhD in history will help you know the difference between a good source and a bad source. A PhD in history, and you're just forcing people to do things they don't want to do. That's where you end up. So we are looking at a Saturday. It'd probably be, roughly maybe midday afternoon, something like that on Saturday. I don't know who all has super early, got to go to ward council meetings like Richard, but so we don't want to do it late Saturday.
6, 7, somewhere in that. You're thinking like 3.
No, I'm thinking like, let's do it super early in the morning.
Right. 5 a.m.
5 a.m. I don't know why no one showed up.
Hey,
anyway, so
you gotta want it.
We obviously there's some cost involved in that, and we want to have a pretty good idea of who is going to be able to come. So the important part of this bonus episode is we are going to be sending out the details of how you could participate if you want to. And if you don't, frankly, neither do I. But if you do, and you would like to come be a part of it, and you would like to see what it's like and mix and mingle with other people who are, people, like we say, who take the gospel seriously, but don't take themselves too seriously, then there's only one way that you can get this information. Richard, what is it?
So back in, I think, June, we sent out a newsletter. Maybe it was July.
We've sent out several.
I think we sent out 2. Maybe
no, because Brady had sent out others.
Okay,
yeah.
Possibly 3.
Yeah.
So we have been inconsistent in our newslettering. And so we're going to be doing a monthly newsletter now that we're going to consistently.
He says this. We'll find out.
That we're going to consistently get to.
Okay. See, he gets a PhD, and
he's
learned it, he thinks he's wise.
So we need you to sign up for that. So, and the idea is that it allows us to. It allows us to, in the podcast, not be too overly focused in business and promotions and different things. And the email newsletter can provide historical context or content like Garrett often does well. I write a little piece called Tangent Corner that is generally about rice tariffs. Yeah. And then there'll be additional details and things. We're gonna have giveaways at the event. We're gonna have, I don't know, not necessarily a T-shirt cannon, but not necessarily not a T-shirt.
We can't afford the cannon.
Well, that's what I call my arm.
The cannon.
Yes.
Yeah, him and Uncle Rico. Anyway, so if you want to get the information about our upcoming March live broadcast of, live recording, live studio audience, we're not going to put this right onto the air. I mean,
No.
because Apple has to vet it. They have to be like, wait a minute, what is this? They won't let us put it right onto the air. But it is a live studio audience for our recording of a podcast episode. If you're interested in that, there is a link in the description of this bonus episode for you to click on and sign up for the newsletter, because we're going to be providing that information in the newsletter. And so maybe you don't want to do it. Maybe the worst thing that you've thought, you know what, I can't even stand listening to the podcast, let alone being there in person. Frankly, some people are so negative towards it. I'm always wondering, why are you still listening? We had a guy post the other day on Angie's been uploading a lot of the past episodes to YouTube. Well, there was someone who on one of the earlier ones had made a pretty negative comment, and like 25 episodes later is commenting still like, I liked how you did this, but I didn't like this. And I'm like thinking, well, this guy, like, he's committed. You know what I mean? I'm going to put 10,000 hours into listening to something I hate just so I know. You know what? That's kind of what I've done with Calvinism, actually.
Yeah, it's very similar. So we're excited about a lot of different things that we want to do with more engagement with the listeners of the show. The hope of fan pages and other things. Hopefully, we'll be able to.
They are all gold at the end of that rainbow on St. Patrick's Day.
more things that we can do to provide better engagement with the listeners and to allow for the listeners to engage with each other, because that is some of the most fun about all of this. So I'm excited about it. I think Garrett is really thrilled about it.
I hate it. Well, I'm not going to let you lie to these people. These are my friends. These are the people who come to the podcast for truth. It's not the standard of lies. You can't tell people, oh, Garrett was like super excited.
We are thinking about coming out with, so my son, by the way, when I talked with him on Monday, I was joking with, so he listens to the podcast like many missionaries on the Google Drive. And I said, hey, how was your week? I was like, I was just finishing The Jews and Their Lies from Martin Luther. I said,
wow,
very
that's
good.
hilarious.
It was very funny.
It is funny that we couldn't get your kids to even consider listening to the podcast before they went on missions. And now they listen all the time.
Well, a mission will do that.
Yeah. So the mission will force you to listen to things you don't want to listen to.
Again, to paraphrase Rigdon, when you got nothing else to do, it's okay.
You know what? Why isn't that a tagline for the podcast?
We're gonna make
the Standard of Truth podcast. Well, when you've already listened to everything else and the other stuff hasn't dropped yet, it's okay, I guess.
That's it.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of quality you'll get in a live broadcast.
So let me recap. Most important thing, if you want to have details about this, or even if you don't care at all and you'd rather not see us in person, whatever, but you'd like to get, some of the monthly newsletter that we're sending out, so you can get some historical tidbits. This month, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Wilford Woodruff's early testimony of the Book of Mormon. If you'd like to receive that, make sure you click the link in the description, sign up for the newsletter. That way you can get the details.
So one other important
we're not going to edit that out.
It's very cold, and so
I'm not editing it.
Okay. So one other important point that I want to make is that anyone that emails in to the podcast with questions or comments, we're not automatically entering you into receiving the newsletter.
Right. So even if you've communicated with us, and look, we read all the emails, we don't want to we want to sell your information to Chinese companies.
Yeah, you're going to be getting a lot more emails from American Express.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, we're selling your information. That's not. We weren't not ever going to sell it. We don't. But when it comes to the newsletter,
yeah, we have scruples there.
Yeah. Look, the point is what Richard's trying to get at, that I cut him off because that's what I do, is. So even if you've emailed the podcast and said, hey, I've got a question about this, and you guys never answered it, which is what most of our emails are, we won't send you the newsletter just because you email the question, right? So even if you've emailed us before, even if you don't know whether or not you're on the newsletter list because it's so infrequent, and maybe the last time you hated it so much that you hit unsubscribe, you're going to want to click that link and join it so that we can, and plus it'll allow us that if we are able to do other events like this in the future, maybe March doesn't work for you because you're Catholic and you are celebrating in Chicago with the Green River. But maybe when we do one in the future, it would be helpful to you. We might also be able to, point out other events that are going on, and also, let you know what's going on with our tours or other publications or anything like that. So there's a lot of good, positive things that's basically for free that all you need to do is sign up.
That's it. Yeah, we're excited. We hope that there is interest. If there is an interest, we're not going to say that there is an interest. We'll come up with some reason why we had to cancel.
So look, if in a month I send out another newsletter that says, "Oh, tragically we had to cancel our in-person event," it means that the only person who signed up was Clay, and I'm not doing this for Clay. I mean.
Clay's to go to lunch. Just come over.
No, I'm not doing this for Clay because Clay would mock me unmerciful.
He would.
He already does.
He would, and he does. So if it will be canceled, just know that we're going to make up some excuse, and it won't be because people aren't interested, because that would destroy our egos.
Well, Richard and I are kind of running, sideways on our, I wish there were betting odds because I don't think anyone's going to be interested. So he's the one saying, no, people keep saying how they loved it. I'm like, I don't think anyone loves it. I think we are keeping this thing together with gum, spit, and just belief and dreams at this point.
That's correct.
That's what we do with our 4th season of the podcast. It really is crazy that we've been around that long.
It's nuts.
And I don't even mean on the podcast. I mean that we've made it into our 40s.
So it's true.
It's stunning.
With our eating habits and our lack of exercise.
Yeah. Well, sitting here doing a podcast for hours every week isn't helping either.
We have it. In terms of total hours listened to the podcast, it's over 2 million hours of content that has been listened to.
Oh, the listened to. I was going to say that we created.
No. Well, we've created 1.8 million, and it's been listened to.
Yeah, we just keep listening to ourselves. We're what we like to call an echo chamber. Anyway, so hopefully this was a nice little lighthearted thing. Hopefully you're all having a good day. And please sign up for the newsletter so we can get to know who everybody is, and we can plan some things for people who love the gospel, love the church, and love to have fun. So thank you so much for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Standard of Truth podcast, hosted by historian Dr. Garrett Dirkmott. If you know anybody that could benefit from the material in this episode, please share it with them. And for more resources, visit standardoftruth.com. Until next time.